Why are people leaving Davenport? Yes, they are leaving. The number one thing I heard when I was working as an engineer for people that were leaving Davenport and the Quad Cities is that there's nothing to do here. And depending on your perspective, that could be true, but it also could be false. What I always say about Davenport and the Quad Cities is that it's a perfect combination between a small town and a large city. So what do I mean by that? Well, I feel like it is small enough to where you're gonna see your neighbors, you're gonna know who they are, you can ask them for a cup of sugar if you want, and people will leave you alone if you want to. But it's a large enough city that you are gonna find things to do and things to enjoy if you're looking for it. But you don't always have to find it or always have to have that hustle and bustle that a large city may have. So depending on what you're looking for, it may be that there's nothing to do, but if you're looking for it in the right places, there is plenty to do and plenty to see. And when I say the city is on the smaller end, it's about 100,000 people, but in the state of Iowa, that's fairly large. So if you're moving here and you need help navigating where things are, where the best places are to live, that's why people call me. So give me a call. I am a licensed real estate agent here in the Quad Cities, so I can help you out on where you want to live. But I am the one that answers those calls, those emails, those texts. So send me something over if you have any of those types of questions. Number two thing I hear a lot is that the jobs here don't pay enough. Again, this is coming from my engineering background. And what I would see is that an engineer was making at the time about $75,000 and they were just right out of college. When you're right out of college, there's opportunities, it seems like, everywhere. And people were leaving the area because they're getting jobs offered at $130,000, which on the surface sounds amazing that you're getting a job offer right out of college or right very closely after college to get $130,000 a year. The thing is where these jobs were, the cost of living was very much higher. And that is one benefit of living in Davenport is the cost of living here in Davenport is substantially lower than the national average. So your salary may not be that high, but the dollar goes a lot further when you're living here in Davenport. In fact, I have a friend that had this exact thing happen to him. He was living here in the Quad Cities in Davenport, and he got a job offer that was a substantial raise from what he was earning before. The thing about it is he moved to Colorado, which is where the job was, and he still doesn't own a home because it is crazy the prices that are out there right now. And if he was here, he most likely would be. Now, it could be a personal choice on his part as well. Maybe he just wants to rent, but I do know from a cost of living perspective, it is a big difference on what your salary is versus how much it actually costs to live. So if you like the area and you can find a good job, it may be worth sticking around because that cost of living is so low in comparison to a lot of other areas. It's no secret that it gets cold here in Davenport, and that's very much true. Something that happens a lot of why people leave Davenport is they want to get out of the cold winters. There's something that goes on here called snowbirding or the snowbirds. Basically what it is it's usually semi-retired or retired individuals. They're tired of getting cold and they tend to go get homes down south in the sand states, Florida, somewhere where it is a lot warmer year round, and they start going down there for vacations and they start going down there just for the winter time. And eventually what happens is a lot of times they fall in love with the area because of that warmth and they leave the area and never come back. Now this is something that happens, but personally I'm on the fence with it because I actually like colder weather and I can't stand hot and humid, which by the way, we get hot and humid here in the summer, but that's a personal preference. A lot of people like to get out of the area because of that winter weather, but others actually tend to like to come here because of it. So personal preference on what you like and why people would be maybe leaving Davenport. Another reason people like to leave Davenport is actually for family. Yes, we have a lot of large corporations here close by, maybe not directly in Davenport. We have Alcoa, or now Arconic, John Deere, and a lot of these large companies are recruiting from all over the nation. And I saw this firsthand when I was an engineer for one of these large companies, Arconic. And what happens is these individuals just graduate college, they want to get out on their own, they come to Davenport, and all of a sudden they start missing their family. Sometimes they even have a baby and they don't have babysitters. So they're trying to get out of town just to be closer to family so that they can have that support system that may not be here locally. But you know what? The opposite is actually also true. A lot of families settle here and people move away from Davenport and eventually make their way back to Davenport because their family is here. And a lot of people really love raising their families here because of that small town vibe with a large city atmosphere. So it is a reason that people do leave Davenport, but it's also a reason that people tend to come back. Now, another thing that people tend to respond to as why they want to leave Davenport is the pace of life is a little bit slower here than some people like. This kind of goes back to nothing to do or not to do, or yes, there is things to do, but it shocks me sometimes. I was actually talking to a new client of mine who found me on YouTube, and he was saying, I'm so excited to have that slower pace of life when I move there because my life is so frantic right now. I can't even find the time to de-stress and get away from things. You know, Davenport is obviously 100,000 people, but it's within 15 minutes of getting outside of town, seeing the cornfields, having that, bird chirp on the tree branch. So it is something that people do move to the area for, but I understand if somebody wants to be in that hustle and bustle, really get after it, they may choose to leave Davenport because of it. And honestly, another reason that people leave Davenport, it's not actually that they're leaving Davenport or the area. They just want to get outside of town into one of the small towns that are abundant outside of there. They want to have that small town vibe where they know their neighbors even more than what they do now, and they want to have a smaller school to go to where, say, maybe their kids are going to be in a sport and they can play every sport without having to try out, which is my experience in life. When I was growing up, my hometown was only about 1,500 people, so moving into a big city like Davenport, quote unquote big city, would have been a big jump for me because you can't do it all in a big city like Davenport. But if you're moving outside the Quad Cities or Davenport, there's a good chance that you'll have that small town vibe that a lot of people do look for. But say, hey, Davenport's the place for me. Well, I'm here to help you out. Give me a call, give me a text. I am the one that answers those, so if you have any questions, definitely hit me up. But if you want to know more about the pros and cons about living in Davenport, well, check out this video right here because I do cover those pros and cons.